Before we jump into today's episode, I have some exciting news to share. The Empowered Educator Show has been recognized by Million Podcasts as one of the top 100 career change podcasts for 2026. And I'm honored to share that we're ranked number 19. That's 19 out of 100. Thank you so much for being part of this incredible community of educators and leaders. Your support, your downloads, reviews, and your shares have made this possible. If you would like to see the complete top 100 list, I've included a link in today's show notes.
The three systems of leadership: leading, learning, logistics. Go the extra mile, motivate, inspire. Go the extra mile, lead, empower. Principles take action. Let's go, fuel your passion. Go the extra mile. Let's go. Principles take action. Motivate, inspire. Go the extra mile. Lead, empower.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Mel. Today, I have with me Jimmy Burroughes, who is going to join me in our conversation today. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dr. Mel. Lovely to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
Yes, I'm super excited to chat with you. We chatted just a little bit before, and you have a lot going on, and super excited to hear about that. Jimmy is coming from Cabo, Mexico, and he said it's pretty warm down there. I think we're in a competition, though, because Missouri is just ridiculous, and I'm not impressed right at this moment with the weather because it is just hot and sticky and ugly, and I don't like it at all. Jimmy helps senior leaders stop rowing through and he called it treacle. I call it molasses. So for those of you here in the States, if you don't know what treacle is, it's molasses. He is an ex-British Army officer, Fortune 500 GM, and founder of JBL High Performance and Aiden, which is AI. He has been telling me a little bit about that. Jimmy has coached over 3,000 leaders across 20 countries using his Simplify to Amplify methodology. Jimmy, I'm super excited. Let's jump into talking about the content today. You're going to talk to my audience, my leaders who are busy people. They're new building leaders in some capacity, and it is summer and they are getting ready because they've either been in leadership for a short time and they've gotten through that first year or two and they're ready to jump into the next year, or this is their very first time of being in leadership in this capacity, and they are super excited, raring to go, but we want to make sure that we're setting them up for success for this year. So let's talk about working harder and longer not being the answer and what the actual answer is.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just such an interesting phenomenon, especially in with this audience. The idea of our societal model conditioning us to believe that working harder and longer is the answer. You think even from grade school when you start out, if you work harder and longer, you'll get good exam results. And then if you go to university and you work harder and longer, you get a better degree. And if you just start in the workplace and you work harder and longer, you get the bonus, or you get the promotion, or you get the more responsibility, and then you get the better job. And so we believe we've now got to let's say our mid-30s to our 50s, and we've got this bank of evidence that sits there and says working harder and longer is the way to be successful. And it is for quite a lot of your life. Unfortunately, when you become a leader, the number of things that are coming at you, the number of priorities you're dealing with, the number of challenges that crop up on a daily basis, the number of decisions that you have to make is beyond the ability to just work through it. So I tell a story when I'm working with leaders. We call it the leadership backpack, and it is by the time when I was in Afghanistan. And basically, we got dropped off at the car park with our backpacks, and we'd been told to fill our backpacks with the appropriate items for a couple of weeks away, and we were going to go and climb some mountains. And so I started my backpack about half full. We stopped off at a little supply depot, and they gave us bombs and bullets and food and water and all the things we needed. And then we started climbing. After probably 8 or 9 hours of climbing, getting quite tired now, we got to what you would think of as base camp, where immediately the mountaineering instructors came out and said, basically, we're now going to go above the snow line. So you need to dump out some of the things that you have been carrying to make space for ropes, crampons, and oxygen if we need oxygen. And I think leadership is very similar. You started off in your career at the car park, and you've been filling your backpack with management skills, whether you were working as a class teacher, head of department, head of faculty, whatever it might be. And you've accrued some stuff, but your backpack's getting pretty heavy. And when we move into a leadership role, when you become a dean or a chancellor or a head teacher, you need to start making some space in that backpack. So what we suggest we do is we take it off, we turn it upside down, shake it out, get rid of the things that no longer serve us, and make some space for new skills, new mindsets, new beliefs. And one of those things that does not serve us, and we see this from thousands of pieces of research, is that working harder and longer is not the answer. Being available all the time is not the answer. Adding those extra hours to your week actually is detrimental to your performance. And what we see time and time again, especially with people who move into leadership roles and try and continue doing the working harder and longer principle, is that they tend to burn out because they're eroding their, the battery reserves. They're kind of eating into their energy overdraft more and more and more frequently, to the point where they're kind of get grinding to the half term point for a break, and then hoping for the end of term to arrive so they can just collapse in a heap on the floor, put themselves back together again in time for the term to start, and then go back without hitting the bottom of their stomach and nervousness and fear of what's this term going to bring, what's this semester going to bring. And it's not a great way to operate. Having been through that life, having worked in an educational sector before, having been the son of a teacher for 45 years, and also having burned out myself spectacularly, I would advise against going down that route. And I think today we're probably going to talk about some ways to not do that, and some things you can do that are slightly different.
Yeah, absolutely. My principal, I'm the superintendent at private Christian school, and my principal was phenomenal. He's moved on. He left me after this year, and he went to be head of school at another school. But I was really worried about him last year because he was phenomenal and he did great and he kept it up. But I was really worried about him because of that just work all the time. And I'm kind of that way too. I will be at my house on a Sunday afternoon and I'll be like, I need to do something. I have a really hard time not doing something and just sitting and relaxing and resting and, just getting some recuperation and rejuvenation. It's really hard when you get in that mindset to get out of that mindset.
Agreed. And teaching it's not a job. Teaching is a vocation. And so the people who are called to teaching tend to be highly passionate, highly values driven people who are, so committed to making a difference to the young people in our world. And so, of course, they're going to give everything they have and be massively committed to just digging in a little bit deeper. And it's the danger here, of course, is that you can become jaded and burned out and cynical if you overdo it. And it's far better to reach the end of your career having maybe given a little bit less, but made a much bigger difference. And this is this really interesting paradox where actually the harder you work, the less effective you are. The longer you work, the tireder you are, the less effective you are. The more balanced you are, and the more considered you are in where you put your time and energy, you can be more impactful. You can make a bigger difference in your career, and the results you produce are better. And your pressure at the end of the day, week, month, year, career, to feel good about what you did. I want to share a little thing that may be kind of a warning sign that some of us can watch out for. And it's something that I remember from my own journey towards burnout. If we think of ourselves a little rubber ducky sitting in the bath, and you pull the plug out of the bath, and you get what's called the Coriolis effect, which is the whirlpool effect. Now, I don't know. I think in the northern hemisphere it goes one way, and the southern hemisphere it goes the other way. But I digress. The important point is rubber ducky is in the bath, and as the plug hole starts to pull the water down, rubber ducky gets sucked towards the whirlpool. And initially, it's really easy to swim out of that whirlpool because the water's moving slowly and the suction is not too much. But when rubber ducky gets to the center of the whirlpool, it's going to drown. It's too late. And so we need some sort of sign of, am I the rubber ducky at this point? Am I the ducky, and am I on the road to burnout? And the thing we look for is the phrase, I'll just. And I'll give you some examples. I'll just work a little bit later tonight because we've got some extra stuff to do. I'll just open my laptop on a Sunday to clear those emails. I'll just go into an early meeting because I haven't got time the rest of the day. I've got a full schedule. So I'll just go in a little bit early to do that extra meeting. I'll just write some extra notes to send out and get my team together to call them together. I'll just skip the gym today because I'm a bit tired and it's been a long day. I'll just grab takeaway on the way home because I haven't got the energy to cook. I'm just going to skip that social event or that club or that church thing or that sports thing that I do as a hobby because I'm too busy. I'll just rearrange my personal life around work. I'll just have a glass of wine because I'm feeling, my brain's whirring a bit and I need to wind down. I'll just finish the bottle. I'll just open another bottle. I'll just have 3 coffees this morning because I'm really tired.
Right.
And this is the story that we justify to ourselves with these I'll justs. But it's like the little 1% erosion that you give and you give and you give. And for anybody who's listening, if you're finding yourself going down the I'll just pathway and justifying, you are the rubber ducky and you need to start paying attention.
Yeah, I'm taking notes. A couple of things. Let's go back to the just giving and giving and giving. And I was told at one time, somebody pointed this out, which makes perfect sense, that you can never give, we say, I'll give 110%. No, you can never give 110% because you don't have 110% to give. You only have 100%. So if you're trying to give 100% to everything, well, your math is not mathing because you only have 100%. So if you're trying to give 100% to school and then you're trying to give 100% to family life and then church life and all of these different things, well, guess what? Your percent has ran out long ago. It ran out with the first one. So you have to really be conscientious and you have to prioritize and you have to be intentional about your time, because something is going to suffer because, again, you don't have more than 100% to give. So be cognizant of that. And I love this just, and then when you said justify, that is golden information there. But one time I was listening and I can't even remember who said it. Someone very wise said, stop saying just. Take just out of your vocabulary because you're not just anything. And that really struck me. And I hear a lot of information. I hear a lot of great things. I forget half of them or more than half of them, but that one has stuck with me for a very long time. So I try very hard not to say just.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's something that having made myself aware of it, having burned out myself in 2017 and had to come back from it and understand why did that happen and what was my role in that, because your business doesn't burn you out, your school doesn't burn you out, you burn you out. And this is probably, a little bit confrontational for people to hear, but it's the decisions that you make in your environment. So you might be in a really challenging environment, but you decide to stay there. You decide not to leave. You decide not to change stuff. You decide not to change you. So
yeah, you'll just stay for a little bit longer. You'll just
Right.
stay till that bill's paid off. You'll just stay till blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we do it to ourselves. And I did it to myself. I was feeling like I had to perform as this, GM who was younger than everybody else in the business, who had to step up and prove myself and take on more and more and more stuff, be in every meeting, be part of every project, lead everything. And that's not the secret to success here. And I think it's probably the perfect segue point for us to talk about, well, what do we do? Because you mentioned the idea of committing more than 100%. I'm going to healthily disagree with you and say
Okay.
you can commit more than 100%. And it's kind of like taking a payday loan. You get your payday loan because you're in the red, and so you get a little loan and you pay it back by the end of the month. And then you use a little bit more money than you have, so you get another payday loan. And eventually, all of your salary is going to pay back the loan, and there's nothing left. And you're committing more than 100%. It's kind of the same, right? You're committing your weekends, you're committing your evenings, you're committing your spare time, your family time. You're giving more than the allocation, the 100%. Even if you're 50-50 work and home, if you're giving 50% to work and you're just giving more and more and more and more to work, you're taking more than the 50%, which is the 100% the work has, and you're stealing. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
You're doing the payday loan thing, but with your energy, with your soul, with your purpose, with your positivity. And unfortunately, as best as we try, work and home aren't two separate things. They overlap,
Right.
they interspersed. Somebody said it beautifully, work-life balance has gone out the window. And I said, well, work-life balance was never a thing. Work-life blend is a thing. You need to have to manage to blend better. We need to find ways of learning where to spend our time and energy and where not to. And one of the biggest mistakes that many leaders make is assigning equal importance to everything. And somebody once gave me, and you mentioned the quote earlier, I need to take just out of our vocabulary, a quote that will stick with me for the rest of my life is, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
Yep.
And so if you're giving equal attention, time, and energy to trivialities as you are to organizational shifting strategies, of course you're going to be overloaded. And the secret to getting this right is to learn the art of where do I spend my time and energy when everything seems urgent and important.
Yeah. And I was drawing out, I'm taking notes as we're talking because I forget things when we get to going, but you need to look up the Eisenhower matrix, because that is that whole thing about what's important, but what's not urgent, or what's urgent, what's important. It's got the 4 quadrants, and I was drawing that out real quick just so I could kind of remember how that was laid out. But yeah, look up the Eisenhower matrix, because again, not everything that's important is urgent, and not everything that seems urgent is really important. So
I like the Eisenhower matrix. However, the challenge with it is our ego tells us, the little voice inside our heads, our ego tells us that everything we're doing is urgent and everything is important. It's amazing that people, I work in the consulting world, when you go into an organization and you sit down with people and you interview them about what they do, and you go, well, which are the unimportant bits of that? There's nothing in there, because everything people do is important. They genuinely believe that. So when you say, let's look at the Eisenhower matrix and put it on urgent, important, everything tends to end up in the top right-hand corner. So we haven't helped ourselves. It's a really great tool for the 1960s. And the world has changed. We teach a slightly different version of this tool, and I'll share it with you. It's the effort impact matrix. So how much effort is this going to take, and what difference is this going to make? And what we're ideally looking for is, where can I put my energy that is going to be the highest impact for the least effort? And if we think about our matrix, we've got high effort, high impact. Well, that's a strategic project. We're going to build a new wing, or we're going to do a massive construction project, or we're going to change our curriculum. High effort, high impact. It's going to change a lot of things, but it's going to be a lot of work. Low effort, low impact, well, we shouldn't be going there. And high effort, low impact, we definitely shouldn't be going there. The little golden zone is, this is an easy win that's going to make a big difference. And if you sit down with your leadership team in the staff room or in the faculty breakout area, and you were to get a whiteboard and brainstorm, what are all the things that we could do that are going to make a difference to our students, that are going to make a difference to our school, that are going to make a difference to our finances? Which of those are the easy ones? Let's get those done this semester. How do I do that on a daily basis? Most people have a to-do list. More sophisticated people have an urgent important to-do list. And if I don't then go, of the things that are urgent and important, which are the ones that are going to make the biggest difference? Now I've got some value assigned to what I'm doing versus just a task list. And
Mhm.
I'm going to be making a difference. I'm going to put my energy into the biggest difference makers. And there's this phenomenon called Parkinson's law that things will take as much time as you give them. So if you've got a week to do it, it'll take a week. If you've got an hour to do it, it'll take an hour, you know? It's always the way. And
Right.
so you will fill your time up with the tasks that you've got available. So start filling your time with the ones that are going to make the biggest difference for the least effort.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. And I love that. I really do like the effort impact matrix. And it does make sense a little bit more than the Eisenhower matrix. So,
Eisenhower
thanks.
Matrix is a great tool. I think we can just build on it for
Right,
just the sheer complexity of the modern workplace. You know, even if we look at theoretical models from the 1980s, 1990s, they're good, but they're not always appropriate for the environment that we find ourselves operating in today.
Right. I've kind of worked with my staff on understanding that you can either delay, delete, or delegate things, and not, you don't have to own everything. And so that does take a little bit of things off of your plate. And one thing that we are really good at is continually looking at everything that people own within our organization and making sure that the right people own the right tasks. Because if you're not owning the right task, then you are at that high effort, low impact because you're doing the wrong thing. So you need to make sure you're doing the right things. So
yeah, you can add one to that as well, which is develop. So could I develop somebody to do this?
Right.
And could somebody, and it's kind of like delegate.
Mhm.
Delegate is I'm going to give it to you, hand it over. Develop is you're going to work with me to take it on. So,
absolutely.
and this is going to be good to build capability behind me so I can move on to bigger things. And if we use an example of your hourly rate being a great way to decide this. So if you, and anybody who's listening, if you type your annual salary into your calculator and divide it by 2040, that's about the number of hours that we work on a yearly basis. If we work about 40 hours a week, nobody works 40 hours a week, but for the sake of the maths.
Right.
And let's say notionally that you come up with, I don't know, $50 an hour. I earn $50 an hour. So that's your magic number. Then start looking at the tasks that are in front of you in terms of how much do I need to pay somebody to do that task? Is this a head teacher task, which is worth $100, $500, $5,000 an hour to our organization? If we do this, we're going to make a lot more money. So when I was in the educational world, we were attracting international students. They were very, very lucrative. So the most important thing I could do was generate more students or generate new ways of making more students.
Mhm.
That was my highest value proposition. If I'm working at my level, these are the things that only I can do. But there are plenty of things that we do as head teachers, as deans, as faculty heads that are $15 an hour tasks.
Mhm.
You know, we're organizing a break room for a meeting. We're
Right.
picking up muffins on the way to school because we want to cheer people up. We're helping to tidy up after the school play. You know, there's so many things that head teachers get involved in that are $15 an hour tasks. You could pay somebody $15 an hour, and you probably are paying somebody $15 an hour. But because you feel this high sense of commitment and ownership, you're getting in there and taking the opportunity away from them to develop, to grow, to delegate, to get some benefit. So all you're doing actually is creating a dependency culture around you of people who rely on you to get stuff done because you're not giving them the chance to do it. I always say to you, how dare you be so selfish?
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. And I've talked about that previously, that I used to be that person who didn't want anybody to do anything because they couldn't do it the way I wanted it done. And I robbed so many people of using their gifts and talents and growing their own skill set. And, I regret that, but I have learned from that. And now I'm just like, anybody want to do it? Because I will show you a little bit and then you can just take it and run with it because you can probably do it better than me. And I got 27 other things I need to do. So
exactly. And it's so common in the teaching world because we like to teach that we want to show how good we are at something, how knowledgeable we are at something, how capable we are at something.
And we're servant leaders at heart. We're servant leaders. So,
and our self-perceived value is in the amount of knowledge that we hold and we can convey. I genuinely believe that the academic world is ripe for disruption because actually now, I can get Claude to tell me anything that any teacher could tell me. What I
Mhm.
need is this flipped classroom facilitatory model that makes me have insights, that makes me see and think about things differently to the way I thought about them previously. So I'm engaging in vertical development as well as horizontal development, and that's what I want for my teacher. So and I remember this with my own father. You know, his value was him being really smart and really knowledgeable. But now I can get anything I need off the internet. I don't need his knowledge anymore. What I need is
Right.
the way he coaches me to think about the
Right.
knowledge that I'm using.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Jimmy, this has been a great conversation, but unfortunately, we are out of time. I mean, time flies when you're having fun, and this was a great conversation for that. Can you give my audience, my principals who are either brand new or just in their first few years of their leadership, or even assistant principals or other building leaders, give them just a power surge statement that they can take away from today?
Yeah, open door policy is the worst policy you can have in your school. I highly recommend for at least 2 hours a week. So maybe 45 minutes, 45 minutes, 45 minutes. You close your door, you turn your phone off, you close your laptop, and you sit there with a notebook and pen, working out what is the most important thing that you should be doing right now. Even better, somewhere else where nobody can find you for 45
Mhm.
minutes and do the same thing. You will be amazed the difference it makes to your clarity and your thinking when you're not available for people to constantly just ask you questions.
Yeah, I worked from home yesterday because sometimes when I come here, I can't get near as much done and my clarity is so there is no clarity. I've got so many things in my head that I can't even I can't get anything done because
Yep.
I'm pulled so many different directions. So working from home, I get tons more done, even if I have to field conversation or phone calls or emails and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, and my freebie that's going to be in the show notes for this escape the multitasking trap is about exactly that, right? It's about this cognitive cost of being interrupted, multitasking,
uh-huh.
functional switching, altitude switching, moving from I've got to deal with a child who's fallen over and broken their leg to I'm planning the budget for the next year, and then back to I've got a teacher who turned up drunk, and then I'm suddenly I've got to brief the governors on something really important. We're constantly doing this switching. There's a massive cognitive cost to that, so we want to make sure that we're really thinking carefully about that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Can you tell my audience how they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably the easiest place is to go to jblhighperformance.com. That's our website, and it's got an introduction to all sorts of resources, freebies. There's lots of stuff on there, assessments that you can take for free that just give you some more insights, blogs, books, book summaries. So for those learners amongst you, then that's the best place to go. If you happen to be on LinkedIn, then you can find me there, which is just Jimmy Burroughes as spelt on the show notes.
All right, wonderful. And again, you mentioned it already, but I will have all of that information in the show notes and the link to the freebie, which I think I'm going to grab myself so I can use it myself because I need a little help sometimes. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great conversation, and I look forward to talking to you guys again in the future. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you back here, same time, same place next week. Bye bye.
Principles take action.